Hello everyone, welcome to the final countdown. Yes, this has been your home for the information about the Jayco Opals and the Australian Boomers basketball teams as they have prepared for the London Games, and now the games are on our doorstep. Hello and welcome once again, Darren Boyd, your host. Coming up on today's show, we're going to go inside both of the camps. Our man Davin Scargetta has caught up with Brett Brown, the Boomers coach, and the legend, Michelle Timms, the assistant coach of the Jayco Opals, as both teams are being put through their final preparations for the London Games. Tip-off is just hours away as you watch this episode, hopefully as your final preview for the Games. We've brought you a lot of interesting stories right throughout the series of Countdown, and we've appreciated your input throughout, and so we hope you will enjoy the final word that we have today from both camps. Before we get into that, and before we get into a little bit of an analysis of the draws that both of these teams have to face when they go to the London Games or when they start their actual competitive matches, let's just recap what's been actually a pretty good week for both teams. As far as the Boomers go, they had their first victory of the European part of their preparations. They had a 2-point win over France. We'll have some more information on that shortly. And for the Jayco Opals, well, they've just continued to roll along with their preparation. They've been superb throughout and also getting quite a bit of handy publicity. And there's a bit of mail around that maybe our very own Lauren Jackson might be in the running to carry the flag at the opening ceremony, which would be a sensational honour for one of the great Olympians and certainly one of the great basketballers as she comes into her 4th Olympic Games. Now, before we get into all of that information, let's just recap something else that's been happening in the last week, and that's the key preparations for the Paralympic Games. Now, we know the Paralympics are going to be following the London Games just a couple of weeks later, and both the rollers in the men, who are the defending Paralympic champions and gold medalists from Beijing, and the gliders, our women, are gold medal chances at the Paralympic Games. They've been superb in their preparation, and once again, last week at the World Challenge, they were flawless. They swept aside all of their opponents and won their matches with ease. So that is a fantastic result for them as they head into the London Paralympic Games, and we look forward to following their progress as they lead up to those games on the Basketball Australia website. We'll have all the squad details and all the information right there for you. And ABC Television, of course, will be bringing you the coverage of the Paralympic Games in about a month or so. Now, the final thoughts from Brett Brown and also Michelle Timms. They're coming up a little bit later on in this program. But let's start with the Boomers. Now, their draw is challenging. We've been speaking about it right throughout the coverage here on Countdown. And their first match is on Sunday. They play the Brazilians. And for many, this shapes as the pivotal matchup. We know that the biggest challenge for the Boomers is to try and avoid a 4th placed finish in their 6-team pool. If they finish 4th, they will make the quarterfinals. But unfortunately, they look like if they finish 4th, they'll play the might of the USA in a knockout match, in their first knockout match. Now, we know the boys are up for a challenge, but we know exactly how hard that challenge will be, and many say that that is a mountain that'll be too big to cross. So they play the Brazilians first up, then they play Spain. Now, they've had some fantastic results against Spain in the last couple of weeks. We'll have more on that in a moment. They play the Chinese, they play Great Britain, and they play Russia. Now, going into this series, Brett Brown and his team, they've been confident. Paddy Mills was quoted in the press in Australia this week as saying that he's confident the team can surprise and perhaps even turn on the best performance that any Boomers side has had at an Olympic Games or a World Championship. And if they do that, we know what that means. It means they're going to bring home a medal because the Boomers have previously finished in 4th place on a couple of occasions at the Olympic Games. So to be able to go one step further and to be the best performance, that would be what they're expecting. Around the traps, perhaps the expectations haven't been quite that high. But as we say, the match against Brazil is critical, and if they can defeat China as is expected and Great Britain as is expected, even though they do have a couple of NBA stars in Luol Deng and also Ben Gordon, who knows where the Boomers might end up. You need to have a bit of luck in these tournament type situations, and hopefully things will be rolling that way for the Boomers. Basketball Australia's Davin Scargetta caught up with Boomers coach Brett Brown during the week, and he asked him about his final preparations.
We now have a bunch of international matches under our belt. What's been the most encouraging aspect of the last couple of weeks coming into the games?
I just think it's good when you play the level of talent that we play to leave games feeling like you're truly, not that far off it. And, it's exposed weaknesses that we have, and we've learned a lot playing against this level of competition, and I just think now tidy it up, albeit in a real short period of time before the games actually begin. That's where we'll focus the next few days before we play Brazil.
How's the health of the boys? Everyone's well?
No, we're not well. Maddie's still nursing an injury, and Marriage hasn't played since day one. We're not well at all.
Yeah.
It's a legitimate concern. Everybody else is fine. It's just, you just don't manufacture playing with them by throwing somebody in the game, even though they may be healthier, like Al Marriage. We miss not playing with him.
Yeah.
But the group we had, had a hell of a run. They really did play some good basketball, and it just would be naive to think you can bring Al back into the mix and have everything run smoothly. We haven't seen it in 2 weeks.
Yeah. What impact, I guess, in terms of your game plan as not having someone as big as important as Al? How has that affected the game plan? Have you had to make any major adjustments in the last week or so?
Well, you get the flexibility of Worthington and Butler going to 4. As we said from the get-go, it's a very flexible group. And through injury, we moved people around and reshuffled and played a little small ball. And David went from a 4 to a 5 and shared that 5 spot with Bainesy. And that was just the ecosystem getting rocked when Nielsen and Marriage went down. You just had to move people around.
Yeah. On Dave, he came into the program the latest out of all the guys, and he seems to be really contributing well. Without a great deal of time with the group. How do you rate where he is at, physically and as well as performance-wise?
I think he's progressing slowly in the direction that we need him to, and in his mind it was calculated. He's been doing this for so long and played a long year, and we spoke about it before we get going, that the end game was trying to get ready for the first game, a month ago. So his progress has been slowly heading in the right direction, and I give him full credit. He's really, managed his own focus as it relates to just coming in and getting ready for this game, as well as any player that I've coached. He's got a very good feel for where he is.
Now, obviously, we know Paddy's going to get his shots on offense, but have you been happy with the spread of scorers that we've had and the number of contributors we've had on offense?
Yeah, we've had a good, distribution of scorers, and I think that's just the way it's going to play out. I suspect that Patty, Joe, and David will end up a lot of games with the most shots and amongst our leading scorers, and everybody contributing along the way. We're a defensive built program, and we want to get out and run, and sometimes you really don't know where the ball is going to end up. But a lot of our set plays are geared to go through those 3, and to get the compliments of the other people scoring is a great thing.
We're pretty balanced and pretty deep throughout the list. How deep do you plan, or how deep do you think you'll go in the rotation throughout the Olympic Games?
I just think it's horses for courses. Because of the flexibility of the group, I think as a coach, if you let it can become confusing. And I think it gets down to matchups, who guards who better. And once you sort of come up with the answers for that, then you go with a rotation. And if we're going through droughts where we can't score, well, maybe call upon Peter Crawford. And who knows, maybe Peter Crawford's good enough to come in and guard one of the wing guys anyways. But really, for me, is to start with, we're a defensive team, trying to find ways to score. We're going to start with matchups, and otherwise you could rotate all 12 of these guys easily as far as just justifying it. It's just in a 40-minute game, something's got to give, and that's how we're going to assess rotations. And it'll be on, different nights. Game night against Brazil may be different than game night Spain. And that's the beauty of the group in regards to the flexibility.
Yeah. So we faced Brazil game 1, which is a pretty big test right off the bat for the boys in terms of the landscape of the tournament. What would it mean snatch a win there?
You know what? You can get tricked on all of them. Every game's big. It's just something you look forward to playing again, and we understand the importance of the first game against Brazil. And we didn't play like we normally play against Brazil, and I credit Brazil. I thought Brazil played good in the friendly match. So hopefully we've learned a lot. And, it's like any opening game. Australia hasn't won an opening game since 1996, and we hope to be different.
And just, I guess, a last question. A lot has been talked about our guards, and a lot has been spoken about our bigs. What sort of campaign do you expect from the likes of Joey and Brad Newley? You talked about Joe just before, but in terms of our success, how important are our the 2-3 men?
I feel uncomfortable singling any of those guys out. I really feel that it's a result of the team. We'll guard as a team, we'll run as a team, we'll share the ball as a team. And it's not something that I think may sound good in print or in this interview. It's what I genuinely believe. The group is tight. The group plays together. It's hard to pinpoint or isolate anything. It's just a real collective, done by committee type of team. And I just got a lot of faith and confidence that as a group we'll find to put ourselves in a position to win games.
Great to get a few minutes with Brett Brown, the Boomers coach, as his team, they're right on the doorstep now. Their first match is on Sunday against the Brazilians, as we said a moment ago. It's really an exciting time. Thanks very much to Davin Scargetta from BA, some of his sharpest work there, and we're expecting a little bit more of the same when we catch up with Michelle Timms in a few minutes' time. As I said before, we know the Boomers have had a great week. Even though they've lost to Spain a couple of times in the last couple of weeks over there in Europe, they also lost to the Brazilians. The win over France was meritorious. Tony Parker was involved. He actually had a shot to win it for the French team. But for them to get that victory by 2 points over the French, it's going to fill them with all sorts of confidence. How far can they go? Well, who knows? Paddy Mills has been saying during the week that he wants this team to be the most successful Australian Boomers team ever. Now, if they're to do that, it means they've got to do what no other Boomers team has done before at an international event, and that is come home with some silverware. The Boomers have finished fourth a couple of times at previous Olympic Games, so if they can be the most successful, as Paddy wants them to be, then the aims are extremely high. We wish them all the very best because it's going to be an arduous and tough campaign with a couple of pivotal matches in that first week. For the Jayco Opals, well, the challenge is slightly different. We know that they've won medals at the last 4 Olympic Games. We know that they've been the second best team to the United States at the last 3. We know that they're coming off a really disappointing World Championship campaign in 2010 where they finished 5th, notwithstanding that they had the second best record in the tournament other than the Olympic champions, the United States, who went through undefeated. At that tournament, the Opals only narrowly lost to the United States in a pool game, the closest that they have come to the US in a very long time. We know that the US have targets on their back, but so do our Jayco Opals. Let's have a look at their draw. Their first match is against the Tom Maher-led Great Britain team. Then they play France, who they defeated comfortably on 2 separate occasions at the World Championships in 2010, but who they lost to just a week ago in a warm-up match. But it's worth noting that in that match, neither Lauren Jackson nor Susie Bakovic actually took the court. So we have to take that result with a grain of salt, and I don't think that it's something that Coach Carrie Graf and the team will be particularly concerned about at all. They play the Brazilians, who they thrashed on a number of occasions in the Farewell Series here in Australia just 1 month ago. They play Russia, who they defeated in the gold medal game at the 2006 World Championships and who they comfortably defeated at the World Championships just 2 years ago. But we know that the Russians are also expecting to feature in the medal round, so that will be a tough match and it should decide the top position in the pool. And then finally the Canadians, who we know will feature a couple of players who play out here in the Women's National Basketball League, including Krista Phillips and Chelsea Aubry, and we're looking forward to that match, which should hopefully be a victory for the Jayco Opals. What are the thoughts from inside the camp after what has been a near flawless preparation, but for the tragic injury to Penny Taylor some months ago? Let's find out from the legend herself, Michelle Timms.
They almost had a perfect run. How have they responded to the loss against France?
Oh, good. Look, that's it all in perspective. I mean, we rested 3 players, so I think going into the game, the main thing was that it wasn't going to be a blowout more than anything. So we were wrapped with the effort and the intensity and how the girls approached the game. I think, all things considered, I think that's the best we've played. So we were really positive walking away from that France game.
Great. There was obviously, going back even further, there was obviously a big push for the Opals to get together, for an extended period of time, and so they could gel as a unit. Comparing how things are coming into the Olympics as opposed to what they were like in 2010, can you explain the difference in how the girls are?
Well, obviously our players have had a lot longer together, as you just mentioned, and it's given them an opportunity for the players to gel. And in 2010 we had a lot of new players in, and a limited amount of time for them to really get to know you, like Lauren and Penny, and how they fitted amongst that group. And so, yeah, the opportunity with gel's been gold for us. So they're really seeming to know each other a lot better and know what each other is on the court better than they did in 2010. So in that perspective, it's, being able to get together for so long has really been an advantage.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Liz Cambridge's form, particularly just how efficient she's been in the build-up. She's shooting 80, 90% from the field, in certain games. How do you think she's progressing?
Well, Liz is ridiculous. You sit there and you assess her games and you go, she had probably Liz a bit of a quiet game, but she ended up with 24 and 14. So she's been. I'm really excited for her. Having worked with her at Bulleen for the last 3 years and seeing her over here, it's an exciting time for not only the Opals but for Liz personally. I think she's ready to really forge a name on the international scene, and she's in really good shape, and you can just see she's ready to tear it up.
How have the bigs been complementing each other? It's been hard. It seems like on the stat sheet they're combining really well, but just from your perspective, how have they been gelling in the paint?
Yeah, really, really well. Look, I think that we're pretty lucky to have the players we've got. They've, Liz and we've got the luxury of starting a number of different ways. Liz and Loz together frees Loz up a little bit, and then if we start Loz and Susie, and then you have Liz coming off the bench, and then we've got the player who's probably been the most consistent out of everybody, Abby Bishop, another post coming in off the bench as well. So, and just providing just great blue collar work, and the bigs are definitely our strength, that's for sure.
Yeah. I guess another big standout in the last few games has been Snally, who's just been shooting the lights out. How's her confidence now, coming off a couple of big shooting performances?
Oh, look, she's. To be honest, I thought she struggled a little bit in Italy when we came home in that Brazil series, and she's just been a totally different player, and just playing super hoop and finding a way to score when we hadn't been able to find a way as a team, and it's really saved us and helped us get on a bit of a run in some games. So she's been absolutely super, and I think the exciting thing for me with Snally is that we know as a shooter, as a defender, she hasn't always been that great, but I've been nothing but impressed with her defense over the last 4 weeks. So it's exciting having Snally in the form. I don't think I've seen her play internationally as well as she's playing now. So that definitely helps us. Helps us keep teams honest. They can't just pack it in against our bigs.
Yeah, I guess just finally, does it feel like this is a special year for the girls? I mean, they've, any medal will obviously be a great result, but what's the feeling like that these girls can do something pretty special?
I think that, as you said before, I think any medal is going to be great. It's a different ball game now than it was 4 years ago and 4 years prior to that. So, I think our goal is to get ourselves an opportunity to be in the medal contention, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll start talking about what colour and flavour that we're after. But the toughest thing right now is to get ourselves in a position to actually be able to win a medal, and then, as I've said, we'll start talking it up then.
Yeah, beautiful.
Great to catch up with Michelle Timms, the Jayco Opals assistant coach. I know there will be a lot of pressure on the Opals camp, and from both, I think, internally but also externally, there are great expectations on this team. But I've got no doubt that Carrie Graf, Timsy, Peter Buckle, Phil Brown and the team, and the leaders, of course, led by Lauren Jackson and Christy Harrow, will be able to handle that and push the Opals to, well, another fantastic performance at an Olympic Games, and hopefully they'll bring home another medal. But the pressure will be on right from that very first game against the host nation, the Great Britain side, led by Tom Maher. Now, we're almost at the end of our countdown series, and we trust that you have enjoyed the coverage. I want to thank you, first and foremost, for actually being part of it as well, with our Twitter section, and also, of course, your views, checking us out on YouTube through the Basketball Australia website as well. It's been wonderful for us to be able to bring you this program and to have you join us. But you've still got a chance to actually be part of, well, at least getting your hands on some of the memorabilia from this program. We know that the Basketball Australia auction website is up. The details are on your screen right now, and you can actually get yourself, well, you can perhaps try and bid on this basketball. It's been signed by all of the participants, all the co-hosts that we've had in here as part of the Countdown series. You'd be pleased to know that it has not been signed by me, because if it had, then the value would probably decrease. So make sure you get involved. Chris Anstey, Luke Longley, Rachel Spawn, Michelle Brogan, a whole range of all of our co-hosts that have been in here. Of course, the great Andrew Gaze have got their signatures on this ball. And so make sure you jump on the BA Auctions website and bid for that. Thank you, Davin, my ever reliable assistant over there in the corner. Now, we've got to, of course, put a big thank you out to the Basketball Australia production staff, Davin, Max, Aaron, our cameraman, who has just been superb with his humour and good grace right throughout. And also our sponsors as well, Jayco, Sporting, Peak Sports, the Australian Sports Commission, of course, and Sporting Pulse. Make sure you stay tuned to the Basketball Australia website to follow the Jayco Opals and the Australian Boomers on their journey at the London Games. And, of course, all the coverage will be on Foxtel. Once the Olympics are over, make sure you stay tuned to us, because we're going to have, well, at least Basketball Australia will have all the details of the Paralympics. We know the rollers and gliders are red hot and they're looking for gold, and we wish them all the very best as well. But once again, thank you very much for your company. It's time to say goodbye, and we wish our Opals and Boomers all the best in London. We'll talk to you soon.